So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our speakers. First off, Mr. Marcus Tan, the managing partner, Marcus Tan and Co. Please give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Next, Siddharth, the CEO of Kribaco Global. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Henry Yu, but apparently he's not here at the moment. So I would like to invite Mr. Colbert, the Vice Secretary, Access Blockchain Association. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Franca Ciambella, the Managing Director of Consiilium Law Corporation. Thank you. Last but not least, our moderator, our lovely moderator, Ms. Jessica Chuah, the Growth Director of Tokenize Xchange. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy.
Okay. Let's get you here. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have a good lunch. Okay, this is a session where we talk about compliance, regulation, and policy in building a decentralized world. Our host just introduced our panel, and actually we have a lot of lawyers in this panel. We have Franca, she's an international lawyer, and Marcus, he runs Marcus and Tant. So he is one of the well-known lawyers in Malaysia. And Colbert, he is the Vice Secretary of Access Malaysia. So, okay, going into the topic, tokenization in Asia and worldwide. The industry have grown so much since 3 years ago, and we have a lot of terminologies, and if the industry players, they might be, progressing well with the industry. They may know each and terminology of it and why they use the term, like the ICO, STO, and IEO. But for layman or someone who is just young in this industry, they may get a little bit confused with all these terms. So we have all these experts from this industry to let us know, or maybe give us a little bit of a guidance on all these legal terms and terminology, and our audience will be interested to know. Let's start with Franca. Would you like to do the introduction for that?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jess. And I always like to start off my talks or my presentations by saying there's no dumb question, there's no dumb comment. We're all in here together, and we're learning every day because this is a relatively new area. So please feel at home and feel comfortable to interact when the time comes. Okay? And so this is an area that has been really evolving in the last few years. Many of you know we started with the initial coin offerings, then we went on to having a lot of security token offerings, and then we seem to be having more and more initial exchange offerings. But in all of these permutations, and then of course, tokenizations that came in with the STOs, but with all of these, terminologies, permutations, different structures, there's some things that remain constant. And one of the things that really remains constant is to understand your token and understand the behavior of your token. And I know many of you will be out there saying, oh, that's so basic. But it is really, very much not surprising, but it happens over and over again that I am talking to potential founders and co-founders, and they have a wonderful concept, and when I ask them, what does your token do? How does your token behave? If I buy one of your tokens, what can I do? Walk me through it. And it's really astounding the number of them who cannot answer that question. And of course, something like that is very, very fundamental, because that's how it's on the basis of the behavior of the token, or what we call the characterization of the token, that we then classify the token as a security or not. And most of the security exchanges all over, not security exchanges, but the security exchange commissions all over the world have adopted this kind of criterion of looking at how the token behaves. And then, you're looking at how the token behaves, but then you're also looking at the nationalities of your consumers, because of course the Securities Exchange Commissions are interested in protecting the consumers. And so that's been a constant throughout with the initial exchange offering, with the STO, with the ICO. That theme is an underlying principle. So in addition to characterizing your token, looking at the jurisdiction of your participants or the buyers of your tokens, the other constant that we've seen is jurisdictions all over the world insisting on anti-money laundering due diligence, countering of financing terrorism due diligence, and KYC. So that's been an underlying principle throughout it all. And then there have been things that have been very specific to whatever you're doing. For example, when everybody started to do the STOs, we had so many people come to our office and say, I want to do an STO. And when we looked at the token, it was not a security token. And I would say, well, where do you want me to send this? What approval you want to get? Because this is not a security.
Okay, Franca,
Yeah.
I want to know, and I want to talk about STO here, because we have another lawyer from Hong Kong, Mr. Henry, and he's a lawyer in ICO, STO. Malaysia, we can't do STO yet, and our ICO framework, ST actually launched this public consultation paper in March that is still in progress, that they have not finalized yet. I would like to know from Hong Kong and how you guys regulate STO.
Yeah.
So for Hong Kong, so maybe I'll give a little bit of introduction to myself. So I'm Henry, so founding partner for my law firm, Henry Yu and Associates. So we focused the blockchain for the last 4 years. So we have been one of the most active, the most active law firm in this space in Hong Kong. So our whole law firm is focusing the different aspects of that, including corporate finance and licensing, of course the ICO, STO stuff, and the even litigation dispute, like among some of the, of course, the investors, advisors, and founders, and all that. So, so for the STO side, now I think there's a lot more interest and increasing interest in this space, but maybe I'll talk about like two aspects of that. So the Hong Kong regulators, we have like regular dialogue with them, and the situation is that basically they confirm they will be using the existing securities law and regulations to govern the STO. But of course there will be some twist on that. There are two aspects of that, because of course one part of it is about the distribution. The other major part of that is about the exchange. Maybe I'll just give a bit brief, the introduction of that as to how they regulate it right now. So for the, maybe the easier part is about the distribution. So what they have confirmed, actually they issued a formal statement back in like late March this year in Hong Kong by the SFC. So I can happy to share that with you guys. But basically the message is that if you distribute STO in Hong Kong or market STO in Hong Kong, then you would have to go through a broker-dealer in Hong Kong, which is what we call the Type 1 license in Hong Kong. So as compared to ICO, of course, a lot of different distributors without any license, but they confirm STO, you require that, the Type 1 license. But not, and the other thing, the twist on that is that not any of the, because there are so many, like hundreds of like Type 1 licensees in Hong Kong, but you cannot go through any of them unless these Type 1 licensees have to notify and uplift their license with the SFC to tell the SFC that you are distributing STO in Hong Kong. So you have to, when you approach any of the Type 1, right? Just first question, you should, if you are interested in distributing STO in Hong Kong, then you should ask them, the first question is, have you notified the SFC that you are distributing that? Otherwise, then you have to like build in the time and in the entire timetable for them to notify them. That's the first thing. So the other thing, the other major part, of course, is the exchange. Also, a lot of people are asking, like, oh, what's the progress of all that? So in Hong Kong, we have what we call the sandbox, the regulatory sandbox, particularly for the crypto exchanges. They actually, again, the FCC made that announcement. Most of you are aware of that back in November last year. I can give you a bit of update on that. So a lot of the exchanges, including like exchanges locally in Hong Kong or from all over the world from different jurisdictions, some from China-based or from US or even Singapore, from Korea. They have like sort of applied to become like part of the sandbox in Hong Kong. So like the sandbox idea is that the SFC, they said, now they are aware of that existence of the exchanges and all that. They're thinking of like regulating all these exchanges, but they're not too sure how to do it. So they're inviting some of these existing experience crypto exchanges to come to sandbox so that they can observe and for 1 year. They particularly say 1 year, and then by the end of 1 year, then they will say whether they are confident and satisfied to grant a license. If they do, then most likely that will be a Type 7 license as compared to Type 1, I mentioned.
Thank you, Henry, on that. So I myself also run an exchange. We are one of the exchange that got licensed from Securities Commission. Well, our biggest concern in running exchanges now in operation level is actually the privacy law, the PDPA that actually is governing that. Because that one, from handling customers' information to sensitive data and how to do the SDR report is something that I'm facing a lot of challenges. And I know Marcus is actually an expert in the privacy law and also blockchain share register. Would you mind to share with us how actually a good exchange can actually do all these governance and control so that we are still in framework of the Securities Commission kind of risk appetite that they will accept? So would you mind to share a little bit on that?
Right. Thanks, Jessica. My name is Marcus. I'm from Marcus Tan & Co. We are one of the most active law firms pioneering in emerging technology in Malaysia. To answer the question, when blockchain meets data privacy, what is the gap and what is the conformity and so on. As far as Malaysia is concerned, we have our PDPA in Malaysia, but sadly speaking, the whole PDPA in Malaysia, we copied pairing material from Singapore due to some commercial trade during the previous government last time. So frankly speaking, our PDPA is not as comprehensive as other jurisdictions. For example, GDPR. That one is in Europe and other privacy laws in other jurisdictions. But in terms of legal perspective, there are so many legal tensions between the utilization of blockchain and also the data privacy. Why? Because data protection emphasizes centralization. They need a controller. The law, the government, they put the responsibility and legal obligation on a controller of the data itself, while blockchain emphasizes decentralization. So the utilization, the technology of blockchain, it does not conform with most of the privacy laws or data protection laws in so many jurisdictions. And this is one of the obvious situations that we can see, especially in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you for the privacy data and all the relevant concerns that you have raised. So, Colbert, you actually recently went to UN, right?
Yeah, Uni Malaya.
Yeah. So, would like to know that since you're running a very successful consultancy firm and you guys also advise in different compliance projects, and I believe one of the exchanges is advised by you guys. I would like to know that what are the core strategy of the international regulatory cooperation will be playing a role here to actually regulate blockchain or maybe even crypto exchanges? Because Marcus have touched a little bit on the different jurisdictions have different kind of laws, and we'd like to know what's your point of view on that.
Okay, hi, my name is Colbert. So I represent Access Blockchain Association in Malaysia. We are actually the counterparts for the Singapore Association. And what we do at the association level is that we interface and we have regular engagements with the local regulators in Malaysia itself. And of course, feedback from them is that they do not want to stifle innovation. That's the good thing. So I think our regulators over here are actually very forward-looking. And the thing about right now, about the whole blockchain thing is that for some parties, they think that there should be some standardization when it comes to the issuance of, let's say, tokens or even the technology itself. So let's say on the ISO level, I'm sure some of you understand what is a ISO code. So on the ISO level, on the global level, there's actually an initiative right now being run. And there's actually a joint technical committee, which is actually represented by many countries. And they are trying to come out or develop a ISO code for blockchain technology systems. So similar for, let's say, database or even for cloud systems, it's pretty easy to just go to the internet and download certain ISO codes and guidelines, and then let's say a vendor will have to conform to those standards. So right now, I guess for the blockchain industry, there are certain areas which should be centralized, certain areas that you should have humans there to regulate and audit and control what actually flows through all these systems. Because sometimes the data flow process can be actually buggy, and you do not need 100% automated systems. And for our association right now, basically, we are part of this actually initiative on a global level. A few months back, our Singapore counterparts signed a MOU with other associations from other countries like Taiwan and Australia to actually form a global association and to work with government agencies and FEFTA, the Financial Action Task Force, because FEFTA came out with actually some strict guidelines in relation to transactions. So of course, when you come and talk about transaction monitoring, it can be actually quite daunting, because if you don't have a AI-powered platform to actually monitor the millions of transactions that flow in a blockchain system, it can be daunting. And of course, right now, what we're doing on the association level is that we are also definitely working on a regular basis with regulators to actually come up with certain standards.
Okay, thank you, Colbert, for sharing on all the agencies-related concerns that you have just voiced out. So, Franca, I just got to know that you have signed with the Singapore Convention last week on something on mediations, and I think it's something really new, and would like to know what is the latest trend or way to do ADR within this area. Would you like to share?
Blockchain, absolutely. So in this space, we potentially see disputes between co-founders, between advisors and founders, between service providers like website designers or platform designers and founders, between investors and founders, etc. So the potential for dispute is practically infinite. And of course, no one wants to go to court, because if you go to court, it becomes very public. It really ends up hurting your token. Your investors aren't happy. There's no confidence. So court is to be avoided. Arbitration can be very expensive and very lengthy. So what are you going to do? Well, the answer is mediation. And as you say, Jess, this mediation as a means to resolve disputes in the blockchain crypto space the timing is perfect, because last week the Singapore Convention on the reciprocal enforcement of mediated agreements was just signed in Singapore. Malaysia is a signatory, as are the big giants, China, India, and the United States. So let me just take a couple of minutes to tell you how it works. And I'm a mediator, so I've been doing more and more mediations in the blockchain space. So basically what happens is two or more parties that are in a dispute will contact you, and you sit down and you basically help them achieve a resolution. convention. You as a mediator work with them, or me as a mediator, I work with them, and I help them manage their expectations and manage the whole process so that at the end of the day, they have a resolution to the disputes. And the ones I've done so far haven't just been in my boardroom. I've done mediations where one party's in the United States and one party's sitting in Singapore, and I've been doing it by Skype. Or you know, I've done mediations where I've gone back and forth on the telephone or on WhatsApp or et cetera. With AI, there's so many ways that you can do, you can be present but not have to be present in the room. But the wonderful part of the convention and how the convention plays in is if you sign an agreement, let's say you sign it in Malaysia, but one party is based in the United States, with the convention, you can take that agreement and have it enforced in the United States if the other party doesn't want to comply. So it's a really fantastic area, and for me as a mediator, but also one who sees disputes cropping up more and more in blockchain, I would really recommend that you think about mediation if there's a dispute going on.
Okay. Thank you, Franca. Henry, would like to ask you on that. Since Franca was talking about the EADR equivalent in what you just shared, would you want to share a little bit what are the disputes that you have actually encountered in the past and how Hong Kong will do all the disputes?
For the dispute side,
yeah.
So I think like for most of the clients that we have dealt with, like I think they're less likely to mediate for one reason or other because like we're talking about decentralized well. I think, but that's actually a really difficult issues to be dealt with, like in law, particularly for enforcement. So like and particularly and when you guys come to sign the agreement, I will urge you to actually, even if you don't look at the content and all that, ask a lawyer about the jurisdictional clause and governing law. So one particular case I share with you is that like just an OTC transaction as simple as that, but it's between a Chinese investor and the Taiwanese counterparty. So of course they pay something and all that, and then of course there's some dispute and all. So one party doesn't pay up and in Taiwan, and then they're now thinking of like, of course, like one party suing the other. But the jurisdictional clause and all that is, they use Hong Kong law, first of all, and they do not mention about the jurisdictions. So if you say, oh, because the party has nothing to do with Hong Kong, you try to enforce that or take that to the court, even Hong Kong law in Chinese court, is Chinese law does not recognize like tokens or the assets and all that, right? So if you ask the PLC lawyers and all that, they say, oh, that may not be even recognized as that. And the same versus, I mean, for the Taiwan, right? Can you enforce the Chinese, even if you get a judgment in Chinese court, enforce that in Taiwan? They say, oh, that could be pretty difficult as well. So when you come to that, I would say, before all that, no matter what your commercial terms are, I think that will become a very important thing to consider the enforcement issues.
Okay, I just want to say that with mediation, governing law doesn't matter. Mediation is not about law. Mediation is about two or more parties coming together and coming to a resolution. And with the convention that was signed last week, any mediated agreement from a party country, a party state, can be enforced in the other country. So mediation, maybe arbitration, arbitration, litigation, absolutely, you have to consider governing clause. But in mediation, you don't. In fact, you try and stay away from the law. It's about parties reaching an agreement. And that's why I'm a real believer in mediation, especially in this space.
But can I ask a question? How to get the two parties to mediate when it's hard to enforce and all that? Because in the decentralized world, right, when the people mediate because they think, oh, you have a chance of enforcing against you, and then therefore it's better to mediate than to.
Yeah, mediation is voluntary. So that's the thing. Mediation is voluntary. The parties have to be willing to come together to try and reach a solution. You can never force somebody to mediate. It's not going to work. It's like making a horse go to water and you force them to drink. It's not going to happen. So it has to be voluntary.
Yeah, but in most of the cases like that we have seen then in this way is because it's decentralized. One is in US, one in Taiwan. It's hard to pull the people together to me there, right? To say,
Well, we can talk about this later.
Okay, Marcus, I would like to know what is the rule governing the
Shares.
mediation? Is there anything that is happening in this space? I know that we have a lot of blockchain projects going on, exchanges, but have you encountered anything similar in Malaysia?
Well, for Malaysia, I think the dispute concerning emerging technology, especially blockchain or digital asset, is not mature enough. We are still growing, but of course, dispute is not a good thing to grow. But I think when it comes to mediation and dispute, it reminds me about the dispute on shares ownership. Yeah, and it reminds me about to adopt blockchain as a shares registry. In fact, in Malaysia, and I believe in other jurisdictions as well, when it comes to company shares or stocks in US, we do not really need to issue a physical share certificate. Well, we can issue an electronic share certificate, but I think the way forward is to adopt the blockchain as a share registry, so there will be no dispute on the shares ownership. And in fact, according to my research, I can see that in Luxembourg, they have bill of law to pass a law to adopt blockchain to be used as a share registry. In Switzerland, it's unregulated, so they can use blockchain to adopt the blockchain in this area. And Malta, the government have agreed to use blockchain as a share registry. I think this is the way forward, and I believe, other than the way forward, and I believe this is also the first step to move the way forward.
Thank you. Colbert, since you are the core team for Access Malaysia, I know that Access as an association will always go to Securities Commission and, do a lot of task force meeting relating to the industry and the voice of the industry. For this share registry and mediation, any planning to, talk to Securities Commission about this kind so that they can actually make law and govern in this part and maybe issue some newsletter from them? Any planning?
Well, currently in our talks with the regulators, this situation or these issues have not actually cropped up. Right now, we have 22 corporate members, and actually the 3 main crypto exchanges, what we call recognized market operators, are actually part of our association. And of course, right now, it's a transitional period whereby these crypto exchanges have to fulfill certain criteria before they can onboard new users again. And we are waiting for that to happen. So of course, I think if you talk about mediation and even arbitration, right now, if you go through that path, I think a lot of parties can save cost and time, which is a good thing. Of course, hopefully we can actually have that if there's a dispute. But sometimes 2 parties can be quite hard, to come to a table and discuss about it. That's why you have lawyers around. So I mean, hopefully that happens, but right now the issue of mediation and arbitration hasn't cropped up yet, because I think it's still a nascent industry. Yeah.
Okay, so I think my panelists have really discussed the governing or the concerning issues relating to all the regulations, mediation we talk about, and share registry we talk about. And for an exchange, Malaysia as the 3 operating exchange, they're actually trying to comply with the Securities Commission's conditions before they can go live, presumably be next year if everything goes well. But they have given the 9 months conditional approval to set up the whole system. So I think we roughly have covered up the state of blockchain regulation policy and compliance in building the decentralized world in Malaysia and other jurisdictions. So thank you so much, my panelists. And if you have any discussion or any Q&A relating to the topic, I think we'll be around this hall, and you can actually ask us to answer any questions that you want to know. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. Thank you.